Hi everyone, in today's video we will finish the double page spread on the Wat Umong temple complex in Chiang Mai, Thailand. In the previous video I sketched and painted this Buddha head at the Wat Umong complex, so if you would like to have a look at how to do this one, just go back to my channel and have a look at the previous video that I shared. Supplies for today include a palette for mixing the paints, a Lamy fountain pen, a Pigma Micron permanent liner pen in 0.1 and 0.8, 4B pencil, a white gel pen. I've got a size 6 travel brush, eraser, paper clip, a spray bottle, jar of water, palette of paints, and tissue paper. The first sketch I'm going to start with is one of the sayings that are posted on the trees around the Wat Umong temple complex. I'm going to start with the pencil sketch already laid down. The downloadable traceable sketch reference is available in the description box below if you wish to trace it. So I'm going to jump straight into the fountain pen work here using my Lamy fountain pen with permanent ink inside of it, and it has a fine point nib. I have positioned the sketch in such a way that it crosses over the midline of the book so that it links the images on both sides of the page into one full composition. I find that sketching over the midline like this does help to link all of the images on the page into one single story. Once my ink is dry completely, I will erase the pencil lines. I haven't even washed my palette from the previous sketch. I'm going to carry on with the same color palette, so I'm just mixing up additional undersea green and sap green, and then some sepia. And then I'm going to go in using the sketch as a guide and just lay in these colors of browns and greens throughout the sketch. As with the previous sketch, I'm only using the photograph as a guide for color, and I will come in after the paint is dry and put the white ink work in over the top. To try and get a bit of a three-dimensional curve to the trunk of the tree, I'm going to add some shadow around the side. I don't want the color of the trunk to bleed into the color of the signboard, so I let it dry before coming in with the green on the signboard. I try and get a bit of texture to the signboard by dropping in different thicknesses of the green as I move around. Now I will use some neutral tint to put a shadow on the top of the signboard, as well as adding a shadow for where the signboard casts a shadow on the trunk of the tree. These shadows aren't really in the original photo, but I'm adding them in to give us some contrast in the sketch. Now we move on to the beautiful Chatty that is at the Wat Umong complex. This Chatty is actually at the very top of the complex, and the system of tunnels that I mentioned in the previous sketch is below the Chatty that we see here. I am going to work again with the Lamy fountain pen, and as I work through the sketch I'm just going to be aware of the fact that I'm holding the pen very lightly between my fingers, and I've got a loose wrist so that there is a slight wobble to my lines, which I think gives the sketch a little bit more character and makes it not so rigid. I find this Chatty to be the most wonderful place to just go and sit out of the way and just sit and watch it for a while. People will come and go, and you will also see people who will come and they will walk in circles around the base of the Chatty in meditation and prayer. In fact, I find the entire Wat Umong complex to be one of the most peaceful and tranquil locations in Chiang Mai. I find it to be especially so around sunset, where you get the most beautiful light filtering through the trees in the forest. Once the ink is completely dry, I will erase my pencil lines and prepare to paint. I'm going to use the photograph merely as a guide for color again. I'm not going to stick exactly to everything that I see, but I do see pinkish brown undertones to the Chatty, so that is why I've prepared a very weak solution of burnt umber, which I've laid underneath. And now I'm dropping in some neutral tint into the darker grey areas that I can see on the Chatty. And then whatever greens I've got on my palette, I will just drop those in to indicate the mossy areas of the Chatty as well. I'm not concentrating on shadow areas at this stage, I'm just getting my base colours down. I'm just going to mix in a little bit of new gamboge to indicate the gold bit at the top of the Chatty. Now I'm making a second pass with the neutral tint, just going over the darker areas that I can see on the Chatty. And I'm just going to fill in some green foliage around the side. This is not following the photograph as much as it is just to include a background for this sketch. I will just use whatever greens are left on my palette and I'll drop in different colors and consistencies to indicate the foliage and the grass. After letting it dry, I feel that the foliage could have a little bit more contrast just to bring the Chatty forward a bit. So I'm going in with slightly thicker consistency of green just around the edge of the Chatty here, because that will push the foliage into the background and bring the Chatty more forward in the sketch. I want to add a bit more texture and shadow to the Chatty. So using my fountain pen, I'm now going to add in the concentric circular rings on the top of the Chatty as well as further down. Now I want to add some shadow to the Chatty. I've got the light coming from the left hand side, so I'm going to use neutral tint and to drop the shadow in on the right hand side as well as under any ridges of the Chatty as well. Now that I've added all of the shadow, the whole thing is looking a little bit greyish to me, so I'm going to add in some of the new gamboge on the side of the Chatty that is catching the light. Now that the paint is dry, I'm going to do the signage on this board with this white Uniball Signo pen. Anyone who's used these pens before knows that they don't always write reliably and sometimes can get a bit clogged up. So I always test the pen first on some paper and do the same if it does stop working. Now I will work on the sign and add the white lettering. Now I will use the white gel pen to add some accents on the Chatty. It'll just indicate where the light is catching the edges of the ridges on the left hand side. And I will do the same on the stones in the Buddha garden. Then I will use the size 0.8 micron pen to add a heading for the page, and I'll add some text with a size 0.1 micron pen. And there is the finished double page spread of Wat Umang. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would give it a like and a comment and subscribe to my channel. If you press the bell icon, you'll get notifications whenever new videos are released. Until next time. Bye for now.